Okay, so thank you for having me. This will be our 4th year. Is that right? This is our 4th year doing it? 4th or 5th? That's what I was thinking. I think it's 4th. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm pleased. My colleagues are as well. We thank you for taking the time to let us come in and speak with you about not only the Industrial Revolution, but technology and how it's advanced throughout the years. So I want to start with a question for you guys. And while you might not drive yourselves, you have a family member or a friend or someone who does. How many of you, let's say the last 3 or 4 cars you've driven in or been driven in, how many of them had a cassette player?
What is that?
What is that? Yeah, that's a good question. What about 8-track player?
What is that? A cassette player is where they have a little DVD.
For the DVD in it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
8 tracks were like this big and this thick.
You know those little black things that has little black, where it plays music and baby, I'm new school. I don't know what that is.
Like an
I'm
MP3
new school.
player? Like an MP3 player? Like
The TVs that go in the back of the seats.
All right, so I think one of the biggest or easiest places to realize technology and its advancements is really in the stereo. So my first vehicle was a 1991 S10 pickup, and I had a cassette player. And cassette was basically a 2 pieces of plastic that were fitted together with the film on the inside. So you see that if you track recording these days, a lot of people still track recordings on film, but then you get it in a different medium. But you would put that in, and then I was new school, as you say. I had the plug-in that went into the cassette player that ran to what was called a Walkman, which was a CD player, which is a disc, like a DVD that you're talking about. And before that, they had 8 tracks, and I'm sure you've seen records and things of that nature. I don't know if any cars had any record players, but they did have 8 tracks. They had cassettes, then went on to CDs, and you'd have things like a 6 CD changer. If you had a fancy car, you'd have a box maybe in the trunk or under your seat where you had 6 CDs, and you could choose from the radio which one you wanted. That was pretty fancy back then. And of course, today, as time goes on, we don't have cassette players. We don't have DVD players or CD players. All your music's downloaded or streamed rather through your telephones, probably. Do any of you even have like an MP3 player, like a iPod or anything like that?
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. So,
Well, I know what an iPod is.
okay. Yeah. So, how does that relate to automobiles? Is that's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to technology and how it's advanced throughout the years. But again, I think it's the easiest way to see it, especially from my perspective, being a little bit older. When you tie cars to the Industrial Revolution, are any of you familiar with Henry Ford?
We've been studying about him.
You've been studying Henry Ford?
A little
Okay.
bit, yeah.
Does anyone remember what Henry Ford is really known for?
Car business station.
Yeah, car manufacturing. Yeah. So, does anyone know, was Henry Ford the first person to manufacture an automobile? No, he wasn't. He's the first to what? Yeah, he's the first person to really put together an assembly line. So like we see a factory, if any of you, friends, family members, whoever work in a factory, Henry Ford was the first person to take that model and apply it to automobile manufacturing, where before that you had what was called maybe like one-offs, like a group of people would get together and they build one car, right? Henry Ford found a way to, I guess, revolutionize how we manufactured cars, and because of that today, that model still holds true. We're gonna watch a couple of videos, but before we do, I want you to pay attention on one of them particularly about with the assembly line and Henry Ford and the Industrial Revolution and how that's changed, right? Because back when that started, you might want to become a welder, right? You might want to become I don't even know what else it would be, a sheet metal former, right? These were things that could get you a job within that assembly line at that factory. Nowadays, you want to be the person that works on the robot that does the welding, right? You want to be the one that runs the computer system that runs the robot. So the jobs are still there, and I think they will be there for a very long time, but they're different. They've changed. What you have to learn, what you have to adapt to, and what you have to figure out as far as schooling and whatnot goes to get a job like that has changed drastically. So watch the first video here, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Yeah, everybody's got their favorites. The big thing that we see now is, who knows the difference in how the cars are run? Does anybody know what an ICE motor is?
I know the motor is, but an ICE motor.
Okay, so ICE stands for internal combustion engine. Basically what that is what a lot of our cars, if you look out in the parking lot, are ICE. They run on internal combustion, and what that is fuel and air. They mix with the flame, create the power. Now, what are cars running on a lot more? Anybody know? Electric, yeah, and that's the Tesla, right? That's kind of what made Tesla so famous, was the electricity. You'll see more and more EV cars, what they call EV. A G-Wagon? Yeah, I think G-Wagons are probably still ICE. I think they're internal combustion. They take fuel, oil, and you'll see a lot more cars become electric as time goes on. Who knows an advantage to an electric car? Can you name one? Can you name an advantage to an electric car?
What would be good about having one?
Less pollution in the air.
Yeah, less pollution. That's one. Any others? There really aren't any others, are there? No, I'm kidding. You do have convenience, right? You have self-charge that you can do at home, but you do have to have a charger installed. So there is some, it's kind of a cumbersome task there. You hire a company to come out and do it. You also have sound, right? So you don't have the sound pollution. How many of you have stayed in like a big city? Chicago, even maybe downtown Cleveland? Have you ever stayed night in a big city before? Well, one thing you will notice if you stay the night in a big city is that they are noisy. You hear trucks and cars and horns beeping and stuff. Almost.
Some of the older cars, they like turn the morning on loud.
Yeah.
Now, usually the cars are quiet.
Oh, they're much quieter than they used to be for certain. Like you hear your neighbor go out in the morning and start their car in the wintertime to warm it up. You know, it wakes you up. Yeah, you hear that. You won't hear that with EVs. EVs are immediate. So you get in and you're just kind of ready to go. I'll refer to Kelly and Trey. What about heating, the HVAC on electric cars? Do they take a moment to get warm like the ICE do, or are they almost immediate? So there you go, almost immediate. So the neighbor doesn't have to go out and start his car and wake you up in the morning anymore. There are several advantages to electric vehicles. It'll be a number of years before we're all electric. So that's something to explore too as you move on and you progress through school and you look for areas of opportunity for employment. The electric vehicle segment is definitely one of them to look into.
I think we just saw one.
Yeah. We're not going to watch the whole 23 minutes, but we're going to fast forward to our time. When was the first car produced? Anyone have any idea? Huh? 1500s?
Like 1905.
1905, good guess. Huh. Here we go. About 18.
We call them horseless carriages.
Yeah.
Them cars,
There we go. First cars powered by steam, which is actually the steam create electricity. The first cars are actually powered by electricity. (1870), the first gas-powered car. (1885), Benz patented motor wagon, Mercedes-Benz. That's the first G-Wagon right there. I don't know, went around for that. Mercedes-Benz. First hybrid made by Porsche in 1899. 1913, Henry Ford. So after the 20s is where you really start to see things get kind of advanced quickly. Bugatti, anybody know what a Bugatti is?
Car names, a lot of them still around today.
1925, who wanted the driverless car? Who thought Tesla was cool because they could self-drive? 1925 is when that technology was first brought about. So that's 100, what is it? 100 years? Yeah, 100 years ago. 100 years ago, they were doing autonomous driving. We didn't know about it. No one told it to me back then, 100 years ago. But today, is autonomous driving still 100%? No, it's getting a lot better for those of you who, again, visit any outside states. I was just in Scottsdale, Arizona. Have anybody heard of Waymo? So, has anyone taken a taxi before, or Uber or anything like that? Waymo is actually a self-driving car that's a taxi service. So essentially you use the app, the Waymo car comes and picks you up, and they take you where you need to go. What's that? Yeah, it's here, it's in probably 7 or 8 cities, and it's expanding. They just put like $5.6 billion into the American, to expand it here in the United States. So it's going to be something that becomes prevalent as time goes on. It's actually owned by Google, if you're familiar with Google. But what I want you to see here is just the advancement of cars and the technology. A lot of things that are being introduced today we think are new. Porsche, Bugatti, things, names like that we think are new cars because we hear that the athletes drive a Bugatti or somebody has a G-Wagon, right? You can see the first G-Wagon was over 100 years ago, right? They're just advancing as time goes on. Technology begets technology, so the more technology builds, the faster it builds. Could you got anything you'd like to add? Any questions for me? Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know but like the cars that they have on roofs, like what did they put over the roofs for it, like the car like?
So back like when you're looking at the original cars, there weren't any. There were no covers originally.
No, what I'm saying, like what did they do with the rag? Like just your car out, clean it up.
Well, okay, so a lot of those cars when they were first produced, like Henry Ford, for instance, you might read about this, is how they actually sold those cars, and that's what really interests me. When the first cars came about, they would have somebody, they'd have the manufacturer would hire people pretty much to go farm to farm, because people weren't like in close proximity back then, and they'd knock on doors and they'd say, hello, I'm with Ford Motor Company, I want to show you something. And they'd walk out and they'd show you the car and they'd try to sell you one, right? Back then they stored a lot of their cars in the barn. Yeah, but if it rained and you're out in the rain, just kind of out of luck. Yeah, that's like Shaquille O'Neal, you're familiar with Shaq? He took a bunch of cars, supercars like Ferraris and stuff like that, and cut the roofs permanently out so that they could, because he couldn't have a drop top, it couldn't go in the back like a normal one would because he's just too big. So he cut off the roofs and then he'd extend the seat back so he could drive them.
Oh, I seen this one. I saw it. I guess he had to get his cars customized to where he fit.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. So he cuts out the back and he moves the seats back.
I think it was a video, he had a 4-wheeler, it was like a Batman one, and then they had to customize it. So
I'm sure. Yeah. I am sure. Kelly and Trey brought you guys some vehicles to check out in person if you'd like to do so. They're outside. What do we have for them, guys?
We have a Wagoneer. It's a 2024.
Are you guys familiar with those type of vehicles? Wranglers, Jeep Wrangler, Jeep Wagoneer, Grand Wagoneer. We're parked right out there if you'd like to go look at them. Kelly and Trey be happy to show them to you.